Um, sorry, I forgot my first slide. Hey, Meta. Hey, Meta. What is the mission of the Real Estate Standards Organization?
To continue, reconnect your phone to the internet.
We talked about how many ways this could fail. That was not one of the options, and yet here we are. We're going to give them one more chance here. Oh, yeah, the Wi-Fi. It's always the Wi-Fi. We're going to give it one more chance, guys. Hey, Meta, what is the mission of the Real Estate Standards Organization?
The mission of the Real Estate Standards Organization, RESO, is to create and promote the adoption of standards and processes that drive efficiency throughout the real estate industry, facilitates innovation, and helps streamline the exchange of data.
Pretty close, not so bad. Some of these seem like silly gimmicks, silly technology gimmicks that we're working on here, I know. But we're going to have a talk actually tomorrow that I hope you're all here for in the morning to talk about mission-driven things that we do in our organization to bring new technology that we know exists in the world already, technology that can put an AI bot in a pair of sunglasses that can run video and live stream from a pair of sunglasses. But do we have that kind of technology in the real estate industry? Do we have cutting-edge technology? We've got some great software vendors here, but we're going to talk tomorrow morning a little bit about where we need to do better as an organization that does a great job with data standards, but we're also incorporated to bring efficiency to data standards and processes so we can invite prop tech into our world. You all know we try very hard to be an open community to bring new prop tech companies into our industry. So the goal here is, even though these are fun, and if you'd like to try them out, we'll give you a chance to do that here, is just to look at what outside world's technology looks like and then think about how we can do a better job at RESO to help our industry invite these companies in and be part of our industry and improve our technology, not just with basic MLS services, but the kind of services that should exist for our consumers, for our agents who are consumers of our technology. So again, silly, fun. My first viewer has joined. Never do a live demo. But so, poor connection, please stop talking. We're going to try to live stream a session tomorrow, just sort of for fun in the morning. But we're going to talk for a little while about the serious business of working through our industry's processes to make things better for prop tech, to make things better for our agents, for our brokers, for our consumers. And this is the open community where startup technology companies feel like they can be a part of that conversation and they can ask hard questions that might be uncomfortable in other venues. Thank you. So, also tomorrow, Danae Evans is going to give a CMLS update, and she's going to give away a pair of these. So if you're interested, please be there, because they're pretty fun. My kids use these more than I do right now, but it's a pretty fun new experiment. So let's talk about our business. You're going to see this map a lot going forward as our membership continues to grow. We just certified a small private MLS in Romania this last week, so they're not on the map yet. The traffic is inbound. That's the exciting part. The traffic is inbound at this point. We're not having to go out and ask the world to do what we're doing, even though we do that as well. We just get inquiries and they say, we're already building this. We're using the data dictionary. The Czech Republic has a new MLS being built on the data dictionary. We didn't know it existed. We didn't know who the technology company was. But they've worked with some of our vendors in the US and said, this is good. This is what we need to do. So we're going to talk a lot about that at events going forward here. I should say, as I get started, this sounds very serious right now, although obviously the demo wasn't before. Who are our first-timers at the event? Could you raise your hand? Okay, It's pretty good. Yeah, give them a hand. 20-25% maybe, you know, a good slice here. Relax, breathe easy, go talk to people. This is supposed to be an informal environment. Have a good time while you're here. We're not going to be a big stuffy crowd. You've got decision makers from the industry here, from all different facets of real estate, who you can just walk up to and talk to and get introduced to, which is really the environment we try to foster here at RESO. So do know that you can just breathe easy and enjoy, because some of these sessions are known for bad jokes. Maybe it's just my sessions that are known for the bad jokes, but it's just the sort of the typical mode of RESO sessions. So we had some great speakers here before. Dovetailing off that, we are working with CEPI, the European Association of Real Estate Professions, similar to NAR in some ways, on an event December 1st and 2nd in Paris. We were invited to do this. This is the great thing. We're invited by these organizations to be involved in this. We have a lot of actually speakers who are here today. Some of the folks you probably see in the crowd: Saul, Patrick, Mary Jo, Matthew, Bill Fowler's here, Shane's here, Giselle was just on stage. In the past week, we've had Jeff Turner join. You know Jeff Turner from Venture MLS and Tangilla, David Sharon, Emily Chenevert, Jeremy Crawford, our former CEO here. So if you have an interest in being part of this, it's a way to get technology companies in front of new emerging markets, new MLS marketplaces that want what we have. We just announced this past week that Danae Evans from CMLS and I, for RESO, will co-keynote the event. So we're going to help people understand the technology is important and the standards important, but the governance and rules and policies are important as well. So very excited about that, and let us know if you'd like to be a part of that, because there's still opportunities there. So bringing it kind of back home, our purpose, we always talk about our mission when we start these events off. This is kind of a combination of our mission and our vision: a streamlined real estate technology industry for all parties in transactions. What that doesn't say is what language they speak, what country they're in, what role they have in the transaction, professional or consumer. And that's what makes us different, especially for the newer folks here. We're not a single trade organization. We're a different organization because we serve a general efficiency. And we have not just a purpose, but a mandate: the improvement of business conditions. We're a 501c6, not-for-profit organization, not taxed because we exist to improve business conditions. I bet you didn't think we would do the IRS tax code while we were here at this event. But our mandate matches our mission. Those really run together well. We know that these are the things, they're general improvements for every party in the transaction. So that has to be our focus as an organization, even though we all have our own roles, that the bigger picture of this organization is that mandate and that mission. So we're going to talk a little bit about how our organization works. For some of you who've been here a long time, it will be a review, but we have a significant new crowd every time. Our products are built. The process is members building products. Our products are our services, our standard specs, our technology platforms, and our progress is measured by that mission. What kind of outcomes do we see in the marketplace? And we'll show you how we measure those outcomes. And none of that's possible without membership whose voice comes through in your elected board of directors. That is an unmatched board of directors in the real estate industry. Phenomenal group. If you're a director, would you please stand for a round of applause? It's a pretty remarkable group. It really is. Then our workhorses, our work group chairs and vice chairs who are not just subject matter experts in their space, but also the servant leaders who make sure our products stay on track. Your work groups build the products that we deliver, and these work group chairs are the ones who make that happen. Work group chairs and vice chairs, would you please stand? And your staff while we're here. We're here to serve you, to make sure that you have a good event, that you have a great experience. Reach out to us. As we always say, Suzanne runs the show at RESO events. They grab me by the shoulders. They put me in place like Ron Burgundy. I read whatever's on the screen. Suzanne knows the details with her team. But I think you know most of these people, but it's good just to put names to faces. Claire Northrop, our marketing manager, and Meredith Tugwell, our project manager, are heavily involved in the organization of this event. Brian Onusorgan, you know, as our membership manager, who you probably all work with. We're in renewal season. Jason Darrow is our technical product manager. He works a lot on data dictionary and with your work groups, but you see him working on the event. Greg Sachs, our director of growth management, heavily involved in content and communications and leading those efforts for the organization. You know Josh Darnell, our CTO. Josh is home building out these products with our dev team, because we are releasing a record number of ratifications right now and new products with the organization. So shoot Josh a message, because he pulled another all-nighter this weekend working on some of these products. It's the kind of guy he is. He's a workhorse. He's an amazing person. So please shoot him a message while you're here. And then, of course, again, Suzanne, our COO, who is the head of events. Remember, though, this is a small but mighty team, so please have patience. Know that the staff, as in everywhere for the hotel staff, are probably a little understaffed. Know that this team here is working 100 miles an hour all the time. But there are a lot of you, and there are a few of them, so please be patient. So I'm not going to read everything on this screen, but it's important that you know that there's a process and a method to what we do in the organization. The feedback from members, based on our mission, comes down through all of our work groups. Our flagship products, the data dictionary and the web API, are there with their components, the models that come from identifiers and other groups and different transports, down to the board of directors to ratify. But that's not where things end, because until we get implementation in the marketplace, we don't have the outcomes that our mission requires. We can't just create standards. They need to be adopted in the marketplace. And so that's something that we will measure and we'll talk about this week, is how we measure the outcomes of that. A few housekeeping things on the agenda this week. For folks who haven't been here before, usually mornings, the first couple days, are sessions, demos, afternoons of work group sessions, where we really get work done with those groups. We're a little bit shifted this time because of all the security concerns in the industry. We're going to spend more time on security this morning. Then we do the work group sessions. I did want to point out, we have a little bit different setup right after lunch today. So the transport work group will be on right after lunch. This is our most technical group. Some of you are not engineers. You might not want to be in the transport meeting. You may, it's okay if you'd like to. But if you're one of the business people who've asked us, multiple members have asked us to run a business session where we can go through all the topics I'm gonna talk about in the next few minutes quickly now, and then we'll slow it down and we can do a Q&A and you can get a feel for that. So it'll be a non-technical session alongside the transport work group. And then, of course, UPI's got a couple meetings because there's a big new versioning proposal that you're going to have to wrap your heads around, talk about it at the bar tonight, read about it in the morning, and then we'll have another short UPI session the second day. So I think certification is kind of a black box for a lot of members. You know, you have your vendor send in credentials, and you get a certificate back. And you approve it and you say, I'm certified. It's actually pretty straightforward. It's a highly technical process, but understanding what we're actually testing is pretty straightforward, and we'll go through that. So there's a request and response. There's a menu of what's available from a data provider, and then there's a product that the data provider sends to you. So the API testing is request and response. A customer should be able to ask for something, and the producer should be able to respond. And when they know what those requests and responses are going to look like, you've got a happy customer, a consumer, and a producer. When they don't, that's where we get unhappy customers. The metadata is just the menu of offerings on an MLS system or any data provider systems. The menu should describe correctly what's available. That's what your customers expect. And the payload is the product. And the product should match what was advertised in the menu. The property listings or the product, they should match what was advertised in the metadata, or else we have unhappy data consumers, and unhappy data consumers make for unhappy data producers. That's it. That's really the process of certification. So that's a good way to describe it to the people that you work with who are not technical. It's very straightforward, but we'll talk about the complex part as well. So who's certified? You know, we were mainly focused originally as an organization on United States MLSs. 500, the vast majority of them are certified on our standards. You've seen the expansion internationally that goes along with that as well. But it's not just having a web API service. That's who's certified. And MLS has a web API service. Converting the actual data feeds that brokers and vendors are using is where the rubber meets the road. That's the actual outcome we're looking for, the utilization in the marketplace. And you're doing the work. We've shown this a few conferences in a row now, and that trend line just keeps going up. You've gotten about 45% of the industry's data feeds converted to web API, which in an MLS is the only way we know it's data dictionary certified. And your organization's a little bit light on there, but we're up to about 65% of the industry's data feeds that have been committed by MLS organizations to be converted to web API and the modern standards. So pat yourselves on the back. That progress is pretty much unstoppable at this point. And that's just a couple of years, just a little bit over a couple of years since we were at low single-digit percentages on that conversion. So outcomes in the marketplace, that's what we look to measure. If you haven't gotten started, you can go to reso.org/API-guide. Your organization can do this much faster with much less pain if you use this guide that a dozen MLS has helped us put together to help you make that transition with your customers. So Data Dictionary 2.0, we're going to talk a lot about that this week. It's a big change. It was just ratified by the board of directors last night for testing. As some of you know, we ratify a spec to make sure it's right, but then we want to have testing tools in place before we go for a full ratification, because some of you have timelines and mandates that go along with your businesses. So that's moving forward. And you're going to hear a lot of details during the work groups about that. We run about 25,000 tests on the metadata. Then we test the payload to make sure it matches the metadata, up to 300,000 property records. It's pretty thorough. It's not perfect. It never will be. Standards aren't perfect. But it's a very complex, deep testing process now to make sure that these things are serving data consumers with what we're promising them as a certified organization. We've done testing with all of your vendors already. They all know this process already. So these are pre-flight checks before the full ratification to make sure everybody understands certification. On average, the changes needed per MLS are 10 to 20 fields and 50 to 300 lookups. That's a lot of work. But we knew this. We've known this for years as we've worked on this spec that this was going to come. And so I want to kind of slow down for a second right here, because we're entering a work phase for the industry, for everyone that you work with, and it's not a fun work phase. We've known that this work is coming. There's going to be discomfort out there. There's going to be some pain, and you're going to hear it from your MLS software vendor, from your MLS operator, from your board, from your brokers, from your agents, from the vendors who serve them. It's going to be a tough transition period. So when you hear that angst out there as this process goes through, remember this. We expected this. We've talked about this for years. And you, not we, you have decided through your membership, through your board of directors, that now's the time to do that work. Enough of the fun slides, right? So what are some of those components of the certification process? We talked about this quickly at the last event. There's a spell checker built in. It can learn your market's custom local fields, which are important and unique to your marketplace. And when it finds those and we say it's a unique field, then it stays and it's saved in the system. It identifies mislabeled standard fields, which are those 50 to 300 lookups that we talked about in the certification testing. And it gets smarter with every test. Every time we tell it that's a standard field, that's not a standard field, it's a custom local field, that's an error. It learns it, and then in the next testing process, it's faster and better. And that's really been the process for building certification for you. Faster, smarter, stronger. We have a fast track subgroup that has subject matter experts who can review these as certifications come through, because there will be a lot of work and a lot of interpretation to be done. We have a built-in spell checker we talked about, and member-submitted mappings, because you know the large aggregators in our industry have already done a lot of this work. And they may not match exactly, but they know 10, 50, 300 MLSs, what their local fields are, and they've done mappings as well. So we want to thank Solid Earth, Tribus, and MLS Grid for getting our fast track group off the ground, and then Constellation One and MLS Grid for sending us their mappings to help us really improve this certification system. Could you give these folks a round of applause, please? And one of the wonderful unintended consequences sometimes of transparent third-party data is companies see themselves compared to their competitors. and the RESO analytics data we've been able to give them on their API services has allowed some of them to tune up their systems 10 times to 100 times faster. This is your brokers and their vendors downloading MLS data 10 times to 100 times faster through web API services, simply because they could see where they stood against industry averages. Great benefits in the marketplace. This is maybe the only slightly technical sounding slide I think we'll have during the presentation, but it's important because Web API Ad Edit, you've heard about this. This is the path to front end of choice for organizations. And we've got one implementation that's been validated at MLS listings. We've got one in the room that's right on the precipice of being number 2 that we can ratify. And there's a media component that's been added to that. It's being built out in the transport work group. So the board also ratified Web API Core 2.1.0, includes replication improvements, server-driven paging, OData expansions are now recorded. You can ignore all of that if it means nothing to you, or if it means something to you, come to the transport work group after lunch. But there are a lot of new things. These are all getting ratified right now. We've never done this many in a month before. RESO Common Format. These were slides that went up in 2019 at a RESO Common Schema meeting. We've been talking about this for 4 years. To get past just MLS certifications, it'll let any real estate technology company who moves data around between data partners to get certified, to package that data up in a RESO format, whether or not you have a web API, it's transport agnostic, and any of these companies can get a certification. This is huge news for our members, for prospective members, for obviously certifications, but that's sort of the sidelight. It's huge news for the industry that any company can work with any other company and say, we have certainty here. We know what this data is gonna look like when we get it from a CRM company, a tour company, maybe an appraisal company. Huge opportunity. You're gonna hear a lot about this going forward. And you know we usually have a celebrity who gives us a little pep talk while we're here, so we'll give this a run.
Hey there, RESO. What's up? This is OG Tone Low, and I know you're working all week 9 to 5 for your money, and I know some of you are still wild things at the conference bar at these events, you know what I'm saying? Just be careful, and instead of order a little funky cold Medina, choose the RESO Common Schema. RESO Common Schema, you know what I'm saying? Have a great time at the event. RESO! Hasta la vista, baby. This is OG Tone Loke in the house. Your #1 wild thing. Yeah. Peace out, y'all.
I'm sorry to those of you who don't like 80s and 90s rap, but that's just the direction we go with most of these things. So yeah, a lot of extra there from Tone Loke this time. So into the bad jokes portion of the presentation, but also some serious business. More new things. Multi-language standard. Giselle from Real Tina talked about this a little bit this morning, being able to supply a set of different language labels for any organization to use in a standard way. So they've got certainty and expectation that they can get that. That is moving forward. Again, we've got one implementation. And thought we'd just go through a few examples of that so you can see it's a very straightforward thing, but it allows us to do great things for our international partners. So in this example, obviously there's a little more code involved in this in real life, but we took out a few of the characters. You've got list price. You've got a language and a location. So French Canadian is liste de prix, and Spanish in Mexico would be precio de venta. Straightforward, right? So we thought we'd help you learn another language while we're here too, because there's just new words the kids say all the time, and it's just fun to go home and maybe you can use some of this with them. So finna, have you heard the word finna? Kids are saying, I'm finna go play football, I'm finna go bash that guy on Fortnite. It's fixing to do something. And in English US, in the RESO multi-language standard, we'd say, I'm going to. In English in Canada, we would say, yeah, no, for sure. NPC, have you heard this term? Non-player character, it's not a nice term. It means you're not important. Blind follower in the US, actually, mid is kind of maybe one of the things the kids would say too in the US. We found some great words for it in Canadian English. Waste man, hoser, buddy, because in Canada, whether you're good or bad, you're buddy, guy, pal, no matter what, right? It was a good translation for us. Riz, he's got Riz, she's got Riz. The kids are saying this. Charisma, attraction in American English. In French, which is different than Canadian French, la séduction. I think they have it better than the kids. We enjoyed that one. Just a couple more. You've heard of hoodie before. We've got a Spanish version here, but did anybody know they call it a bunny hug in parts of Canada? I think it's just Saskatchewan, but couldn't avoid that one. And then the last one, you know the term mullet probably, but French-Canadian, coupe-longueuil, kind of a nice looking word. And then English-Canadian, the Calgary cut. And don't believe anything I just said. I made most of this up. But you couldn't pass up a chance to get Wayne Gretzky and Joe Dirt on the same slide. So thank you to our Canadian friends for being good sports. So let's talk a little bit more. We'll finish up with the products here. You've seen the expansion in Data Dictionary, new companies coming in all the time. Rentals, commercial companies who traditionally would not have been part of what we were thought of as a residential MLS organization, coming in, contributing to expanding the Data Dictionary for their uses. The alignment reports we've talked a lot about, we'll be delivering this quarter. They're live. We've seen these in action. They're working now. We're doing some adjustments to the user interface to make sure they're good, but you'll have those this quarter. I think Josh said we may even release this week your first individual versions of this so you can look at your company versus industry averages, but then the more complex reports will come out this quarter. They're premium products. They're things that will have a cost to them. It's not free to build these things, but we think they'll be a huge benefit to folks in data collaborations, data shares, consolidations, et cetera. And then we want your feedback on what these look like in the future. We've got all kinds of ways to visualize this data. Of course, we want the deep reports for the engineers who are doing the work. But for your management teams, for the business people, it's good to be able to have these kinds of things that explain at a high level to the folks you work with what your alignment looks like with your data partners and where you've got things to work on in those alignments. We continue to have a great relationship with the National Association of Realtors. We worked on the safety fields proposal that has passed through the Data Dictionary work group. That came from an NAR group. The single feed technology, you remember this in pain points. There was a lot of conversation as that came through and became policy. Vendors have always had the capability to do a single feed for their customers, but the new spec coming out through RESO will allow them to do it in a standard way. So every vendor could provide this in a standard way, and data consumers would have a simpler way to accept that from multiple vendors. And as always, NAR was our first biggest financial contributor. NAR continues to be our biggest contributor for technology development. All these tools we show you, all the certification platform, all of RESO Analytics is hugely dependent on NAR's relationship with us and their support, and we're continually grateful for that support from the organization. We talked about UPI, a couple meetings. We've had a lot of deep research done recently. Black Knight and ICE had done some last year. CoreLogic did a lot this year. So you'll want to go to those meetings if you have interest in UPI, because we're really at a turning point in that group based on real market research. So thank you to those companies for doing that work. And the RED course, you've heard about, we've had over 900 people register for the course now in a couple of years. So that's pretty exciting, big success. 20 companies are RED ambassadors. They've had 20 or more employees take the course. Most of those companies are onboarding every new employee with the course, and some of them are offering that to their volunteer boards to get them all on the same page for technology decision making as well. Remember, when you're making decisions about fields, we have aggregate data for the whole industry on the Data Dictionary Wiki. Find out how many MLSs are using a field before you go into a meeting and talk about whether it's a good idea to use it in your marketplace. So stay tuned. There's a lot of changes in certification. Our CTO, Josh Darnell, is going to run a webinar in November so you can really dig in at a slower pace and ask questions about the certification process, and then the alignment reports that are coming out as well. A couple of housekeeping notes. The board of directors election is on. It's membership renewal time. And ask your staff to read RESO monthly. These are all at reso.org. 15, 20 minutes a month will be enough for you to know what's happening in almost all of the organization even if you can't make it to the meeting. So make sure that that's something you do, especially if you build software. If your company builds software, your staff has to know what's coming down the pike at RESO, and this is a really easy way to do it. So we're gonna go into our first sessions on security, and I'm gonna ask you to get either your phone or your notepad out and write down some notes here. This is the point where we take things back to our organizations and say, this is why we spent the money and time at RESO. The industry's in an interesting spot right now. Budgets are not wide open right now. And you really want to be able to go back and say, this is valuable information that I got from spending my time at RESO. So please do take the time to write down a few things, whether it's the business section or the technical section of these security sessions, so you can make sure to deliver that value to your company. Thank you all for being here. Let's bring up our first speakers for our next session on MLS secure functions.